Check, check. Can you hear me now? My meters say you can hear me now. Good to be with you tonight. This is Chris in the media studios at First United Methodist Church in Cedar Falls. Welcome to our Saturday evening Facebook devotion. It's good to be with you. I'm here in my office. I've got my mess behind me as always. I've got my allergies, so I've got my Kleenex, and I'm a drippy nose. I have to admit that I'm probably gonna speak a little bit more about issues of the day tonight than I am about issues of faith. But I want to talk about what's on my heart and be sort of authentic that way. And I hope that my faith, our Christian faith, does inform what I'm about to say. But let's start here. Let's start with this. A few years ago, Lisa and I went with a group from Treehouse to New York City, and it was a fun trip. We were gone for a week, maybe even a day or two longer than that. I don't know. It was a fun group to travel with, though. Treehouse is a campus ministry at UNI. And so the Treehousers, the folks we were traveling with, in large part, were college-aged. And college-aged kids are fun kids. They're adults, right? But they're young ones. And they're young enough to be fun and goofy, but they're also old enough to be responsible for themselves, right? They're old enough to deal with the consequences if they get themselves in trouble. And so that means that Lisa and I, we're not chaperones. We're not babysitters. We're not doing bed checks and that kind of junk, right? We're just having fun with them. We're just having fun in New York City with a bunch of young people, and so that was really cool. But it was an awesome trip. Our mornings and our early afternoons on this trip, we were doing some light mission work, and we were attending a few days of seminars on diversity and inclusion that had been put together for us by the church. And some organizations within the church. So that was sort of the faith angle of it. And our late afternoons and our evenings on this trip were free for us to do whatever we wanted. And so Lisa and I usually just went out and wandered around. See, I'm fascinated with different places and I love just being a part of the city life right there at street level. And I'd love to just sort of throw myself into those unfamiliar places and just see what's out there. And so usually Lisa and I would just go wandering around in Manhattan. And we actually, even throughout the week we were there, we kind of found a favorite neighborhood pub that we usually ended the evening at. And we just had a fantastic time. But one of those evenings, Lisa and I were joined by three of the young folks from Treehouse. They were freshmen at the time, and they've all graduated now. And in fact, one of them still hangs around Cedar Falls First. Jordan Lang has been helping with our youth on Wednesday nights. So we haven't seen much of her this spring, but we've managed to stay in touch with her. But anyway, these three freshmen and Lisa and I, we had a great night just wandering around. We took the subway from our Midtown hotel to down to Chinatown on the Lower East Side, and we ate cheap dumplings and soup in a really dark and sticky restaurant, and it was great. And then we walked through a park, and you know what? There are lessons from that walk through the park that might be appropriate for next week. So maybe I'll turn this into a two-parter, right? Because there's more here than I can cover in like a 10-minute talk tonight. But we then, Lisa and I and these three freshmen, we took the train over to Brooklyn. And we wandered around Brooklyn for a while, and then we walked back to Manhattan over the Brooklyn Bridge as night was falling. And you can walk the Brooklyn Bridge in about 10 minutes if you want to, and if you have to, right? But it took us a lot longer than that, because there's a nice breeze from the water. The pedestrian walkway is up above the traffic lanes, and so there's a lot of noise from the cars and the trucks and the buses down below you. And there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people up on this pedestrian walkway on the Brooklyn Bridge. The pedestrian path it's shared by tourists like us who are just there to visit this iconic structure, and there are photographers everywhere. There are brides and grooms with bottles of champagne toasting their marriage. And there are people who are using that bridge as transportation, just to get from one side to the other. There are walkers and cyclists in a hurry, also as well. But it's cool to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge, and I've done it twice now in my life. And on this particular night, it was just gorgeous. It was a beautiful night, and the view changed. It seemed like with every step that we took, the view would change just a little bit. And so in our best Midwestern mosey, we'd stop and we'd linger from time to time. We'd lean on the railing and look out to one side or the other, or straight ahead toward Manhattan, or back behind us toward Brooklyn. But there is a point at which you realize when you look to the south, way out there on the harbor, backlit against the setting sun and the cranes from the New Jersey ports, is this tiny little island with a statue on it, right? The Statue of Liberty. And you can see it from the Brooklyn Bridge. It's small because it's a long ways away from at this point, but it's there and you can identify it. And other people were seeing it out there too, other tourists, and a lot of the tourists that were seeing this, that were on the bridge with us that night, were from other places, from other countries, and they'd see the Statue of Liberty out there on its island, on the water, and they'd point to it. They'd stop and they'd point to it, and they'd talk about it, and they talk about it in the language of their country, their own language. They talk about it in German. They talk about it in Hindi or Arabic, right? And it's sort of a poignant moment when you see people of other nationalities react that way to one of your own nation's symbols. It reminds you of what your nation, our nation, has meant to the world, what it still means to the world when they react that way. Right? When you see people from other places point to our Statue of Liberty and stop in their tracks and talk about it, it makes me grateful to be born American. It makes me proud to be born American. And honestly, it makes me want to share it. It makes me want to share what we have. It's special. It makes you realize that the American dream really is everyone's dream. We just happen to live in a place where the founders crafted a nation around the pursuit of the American dream. And that kind of brings us to today. Today, there's a significant number of Americans who are saying, I'm not as free as you. Right? They point at the Statue of Liberty and they say, I'm not sure this applies to me. And truth be told, they've been saying it for a long time. The recent killing of George Floyd is just the latest incident in a story that's been going on for 400 years, right? For a law and order guy like me, the riots and the vandalism have been really hard to watch. But you know what? I understand the anger, and it's time for us to face this together. I don't have answers, and in fact, I have way more questions than answers. But I think George Floyd's death is pointing toward our biggest threat. We're not going to be destroyed by climate change, and we're not going to be destroyed by a virus, but we certainly can be destroyed by how we treat and how we mistreat each other. So, as people like me who have not had to face racism in a really serious way, as we begin to try to figure out our role in what others say is an unequal system, this is a time for us to insert our faith into the local, the national, the political, the social issues around us. This is a time for that. Right? If there's ever a time to take our faith out of the church and put it into where we stand in the rest of the world, this is that time. You know, I'm proud to be both an American and a Christian. I don't usually wrap my flag around the cross, right? Because I think being American and being a Christian are different things. They relate to each other, but they're different things. But right now, I think the flag could use a lot more Jesus. Right? I think right now is an excellent time for our faith to come to the fore and guide us in the heavy lifting that it's going to take for all of us to feel free, to all of us feel like that statue in New York stands for us. As we wade into the issues of racism and justice and equality, let's do it with directness, let's do it with honesty, let's do it with grace, and above all, let's love first. So hey, that's what I have for you tonight. We'll see you on the live stream tomorrow morning. Okay, we'll be back in Fellowship Hall with Sam and the band. How cool is that? We're going to crack open a new teaching series on the Ten Commandments. Jenna is actually going to kick it off with a message for the kids. And she's going to walk them through God's top 10 list. And then Pastor Scott and Pastor Matt will take over with, and they'll go a little deeper for us into commandment number 1. So that's all tomorrow morning. Facebook Live right here, 8:30 in the morning, or you can also catch us at aboutfirst.com at our online worship page. Also on the online worship page, even if you're watching on Facebook, go to the online worship page and get the GPS study guide for the day. Check out the names of the hymns or the songs that we're going to sing. You can sign in, right? You can. There's a place for you to sign in so that we know that you're with us, and that's sort of important to know that you're there. You can participate in the online offering, and there are a couple videos there for you to watch as well. So hey, we hope you have a good night tonight. We will see you in worship tomorrow morning. Good night.